Good morning. Time for Sunday morning church. How y'all doing out there? Do have a subject I want to talk about today. Today's episode will be all about our ancestors. This is especially for those of us who are of European descent, because that's what I know about. First, I want to say that tonight I plan to drive 2 hours to see an anti-Trump political punk band. They're sort of a grunge / death rock band, which is a wonderful combination. I love this band. They're from Omaha. They're called No Thanks. I'm really excited to see them. So I'm going to Cincinnati tonight. Anyway, on to the subject at hand. What I wanted to talk about is when honoring your ancestors is troublesome. I started learning about pre-Christian spirituality a couple of years ago, maybe 2.5. And prior to that, I had never given ancestor honoring much thought. In fact, I'm one of those people who never really enjoyed family reunions. As a kid, I do remember being excited to go to Grandma and Grandpa's house because there were cousins to play with, so I liked that. But once I got up into, teenage years, it was just a burden for me to have to travel a long way to see my grandparents, whom I had nothing in common with. There was a time when I was a young adult when I finally got interested in who my grandparents were and did start asking them questions. And I was glad I did, because then they started passing away one by one. And I was glad that I had made some connection. As for my ancestors prior to my grandparents, I hung out with one a little bit, but yeah, I had even less in common with her. And since then, I've tried to speak with her from the beyond, from the beyond. She's in the beyond. I've tried to talk with her after she's passed on. And that's been, well, that wasn't easy either, because I still felt like we had nothing in common. So it's always been hard to make that connection. But that's not even, that's one difficulty for me, connecting with ancestors, is just, the further back you go, the less you have in common with these people. And you can try to learn about how things were back then, and how the way people thought, but we only know so much. And I think the reality is, well, reality is a funny word, because I'm never going to meet these people in this world. I'm never going to meet my ancestors beyond my grandparents. But it seems safe to assume that if I did somehow, we would barely understand each other. We'd have nothing in common. And even beyond that, the real reason I want to talk about this is even more that there's even a worse problem than having nothing in common, and that's disagreeing on some very important topics. I have this problem with my parents and my aunts and uncles. We don't see the world in the same way at all. So that's difficult. If I'm at odds with my own parents, how much more at odds would I be with deeper ancestors? Now, I've read that our pre-Christian ancestors were a lot more chill. They didn't have this dogma that I grew up with, which is nice. They were more relaxed in their attitudes toward women. Not sure about other races. I don't think we know a lot about that. And that leads me to the next problem I wanted to bring up, and that is that there is, it seems that some people have an impression that pagans are racist, and from what I've seen, that impression seems to come from a valid place. Not saying that all pagans are racist, by no means. In fact, I think most are not, or try not to be. But as in every segment of the white population, there are racists among white pagans. Of course, that shouldn't surprise anybody. The problem is when people, I mean, everybody who's racist justifies it in some way, right? And pagan racists justify their racism often using paganism. And that is a problem, because it makes me look at my pre-Christian ancestors and wonder, what were their attitudes toward people who weren't like them? Now, it's a very different thing because, back then there was no America, there was no slavery in America, which is the main problem of racism that we deal with now. That and letting Latin Americans across the borders into America. We didn't have those exact same issues. Of course, they didn't have those issues in pre-Christian Europe. But safe to say they probably had some similar issues. There probably was slavery of some race. There almost certainly were immigration issues. Who is this person who's completely different from us coming into our land? Some people, maybe half the population was okay with that, and the other half wasn't, just like we have here today in America. Can you even call that? Could that even be considered racism? I think probably it would have looked very different from the racism we see here now, but in some ways it might have looked very similar. Who can say? We can only speculate about these things. So the problem comes when we're told in many paths of paganism, for lack of a better word, that honoring your ancestors is a very important part of it. And I especially ran into this when I was going down the path of Gaelic polytheism, which is Gaelic polytheism is beautiful. I have nothing bad to say about it, but honoring your ancestors is huge in Gaelic polytheism. So I really took the time to try to understand that and unpack that. I actually hate that word. I can't believe I just said that. So I really tried to think about my ancestors, both near and distant, the ones I had met and the ones I can only conjecture about. I tried speaking with them. I tried thinking about them. I tried praying to them and letting them influence my life, even though, most of them are buried over there in Europe, long gone. And the ones who were buried here in America were Christians. So I'm sure that's something that many of us have dealt with and thought about. Trying to think about where I was going with that. It's all going somewhere, I think. So, honoring my ancestors has become a difficult thing when I think about would I even want to hang out with my ancestors. Now, there's definitely a dividing line between my Christian ancestors and my pre-Christian ancestors. I have pretty good sense of what my Christian ancestors were like, based on, there are a lot of things written down about what European Christians were like and are like, and what American Christians were like and are like, and I know a lot about what American Christians are like now, and well, since the 70s, because I've been around them. So it makes me think, you know, would I even want to hang out with my Christian ancestors? But then, you know, as for the pre-Christian ancestors, whom I know very little about, especially when it comes to their attitudes toward race and women and things I care about, would I want to hang out with them? I probably have to be on a case-by-case basis. Some of them might have been cool, some of them might not have been. So that's something, I guess, that you just have to dwell on, meditate on, seek communication with them on a case-by-case basis. I guess my point is, and I never really thought about it this way until just this moment, but you do have to take it on a case-by-case basis. You cannot assume that all your ancestors were cool or had good intentions toward different people groups. You can't assume that they were all uncool. There's no reason to reject them outright, which is kind of what I've been doing lately. And so I think talking about this out loud has been helpful. So thanks for listening. I've been focused more on deities and the nature spirits than my ancestors, because I didn't know how to deal with the ancestor part. But maybe now that I've really thought about this and talked it through, maybe I will try again to just see if I can find somewhere inside me, somewhere out there in the spirit world, in the other world, some ancestors who actually were very good people. They must exist. I mean, I've read about the virtues, and it's easy to take a list of virtues and say, yes, I'm virtuous, but when it comes to this other people group, well, it doesn't count. I have my reasons. I have justified reasons in hating this people group or treating women in such a way, but I still have my virtues. I mean, we see that all the time today, right? So I'm sure it happened back then too. So thanks, guys. I still have a lot to think about when it comes to my ancestors. If my only way of connecting with them is through meditation and shaman type activities, it's gonna be tough. I have a long road to go. I don't even know if I want to. I don't even know if I want to try. I don't even know if it's worth it. It sounds really hard. I don't know if it's worth it, when there are other things I enjoy doing more. When it comes to deities and nature spirits, they're much easier for me to connect with. So far, but we'll see. I guess that's it for now. Thanks, guys, and I hope you have a great day. And if you have any comments, feel free to leave one. If you want to subscribe, that would be super awesome, because I don't have any subscribers yet. That's okay. Take care. Bye.